morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Enablement Brew. I'm Carly Lehner.
And I'm Malvina Alsayak, and we're excited you're joining us on this chilly September day. Well, it is chilly in in London. I'm in two jumpers, but yeah, we're excited to get started with today's episode.
Yeah, it's chilly out in the Cotswolds as well. I'm wearing a t-shirt jumper. Definitely regret it. I'm gonna have to change after this. I think summer's over, Malvina. I think it's time
I
to get this
mean,
out.
I have like a Christmas blankie next to me, like red and cozy, and I'm like literally deliberating should it go on my lap or should I leave it there? I'm gonna hold off just a little bit longer because when the winter comes, rising electricity, gas prices, all that jazz, I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need that blankie.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, before we get started, what's in your mug?
It's a third coffee of the day and it's morning, so
Ooh, that kind of
you.
I have tea.
Oh, very
So we
nice.
have our matching enablement mugs, enablement brews
Yes, I
today.
love them.
Oh, fun.
When my mom came to visit, she obviously made herself, a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And this was the mug she was drinking from. She's like, "Oh, this is very nice. And why does it have your name on it?"
Well,
um,
I have
we didn't go into the details of it because, I don't know if you have this, but explaining things to your parents, like what your role is and what you do, and yeah, it's long. It's long-winded.
yeah, I think my dad kind of understands what I do. I think my mom maybe does, but they always like love when Evan and I are like at my parents' house visiting, but we're still working. And they love just like listening to us like on our calls. And they're like, this is so wild. Like hearing what you guys do every day for a living is
I
like
know.
so different. My mom was a teacher. My dad does like executive recruiting and like it's just completely different to the sales world.
It
So
is. I mean, my mom is a nurse, so trying to explain, tech sales to someone who's been like working in hospitals pretty much her entire life is just abstract. So how do you make your money? So what is it exactly that you sell?
what is SaaS? What do you mean by that?
What is that? Love my
But,
parents dearly, but yeah, that's one of those conversations that I try to exit very quickly with them.
well, so today's topic, I'm excited to chat about this because this is probably like the most important part of enablement is adoption of and change management of insert anything here, right? A new process, a new tool, new type of technology or new messaging, like you name it, like enablement is responsible for making sure that the team adopts and uses whatever it is. So how have you experienced this in the past?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I think it's one of the headaches of enablement, right? Because I know I do. I get excited when we bring on, a new piece of tech, change the process, try to improve things. And I could see that it could be such a value add to the rest of the sales team. And then when you don't see that adoption, it's a little heartbreaking, we always say it's business, it's not personal, but I bloody take it personally, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Um, I think for me, it boils down to repetition, and I don't think there is a magic number as to how many times you can repeat something before it registers, but it's repetition. Is it fun all the time? No. Does it drive us bonkers?
Yes.
Yes, it does. But I think that comes with a job, right? I'm not a particularly patient person, funny enough, because I think our role requires a lot of patience.
We are very similar in that. am notoriously very impatient, like especially like in my personal life, and I've gotten much better with that. But I think I remember reading somewhere that it's like you have to repeat something 7 times for someone to like
Mhm.
remember it or something like that. And so I have a hard time accepting that I need to tell a salesperson or a leader or someone to do something 7 times or how to do something seven
Yeah.
times. And I mean, there's tools out there that can help with like adoption of things, but um, yeah, I think genuinely this is one of my biggest frustrations. It's like, I always ask myself, like, am I living in the twilight zone? Do I really have to repeat that this lives in Beckett or that there's a video on how to do that in, Showpad or whatever platform you use? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I say this stuff every day or
Mhm.
every Monday in our stand-ups. We go over all of like this stuff. So
Yeah.
it I definitely think this is a headache of enablement
Yeah.
for
And I think it's funny, right? Because I mean, I do look very young, but I've been around for a while now. And I think when I started my career, like genuinely, I would be so, like eager to read up on what I have to do. Like if things change, I always had this fear of being left out. So I was always that person like making sure I understand everything and like validating it with a colleague. Like, do you get it? Should we try it out together? I feel like I put a lot of effort and time into understanding the landscape. One, it was all very new to me. I mean, you're a fresh university graduate, and I think I still have that, I don't want to say exam type mindset, but still that like have to prepare because it's gonna come up, right? And I'm gonna have to do something with it. And I don't know if you sense this. Maybe it's just my opinion, but I feel like so often people want things handed to them on a platter. It's like, give me the food, chew the food, and feed it to me. All right, this sounds a bit harsh, but I do get a little bit of a sense of that. And then, you're saying you have to repeat something 7 times. Like, why? Why so many times? And I get it. We're all busy. Everyone's doing different things. Everyone is pulled in a million and one different directions, but it makes it very difficult when you see that light at the end of the tunnel 7 times in, after 7 times.
yeah. So it's interesting because the whole like adult learning theory comes in where they like people will forget something if they don't use it like right away, right? But for me, some of the things that we get questions about are things that they should probably be doing on a very consistent basis, like at a minimum, a weekly
Yeah.
basis, if not more frequently, right? And I'm like, how do you not know how to process a churn in Salesforce?
Mm,
Like, you've been there for a year.
yeah.
It's not the first time something in your book has churned. Like, how do you not know how to do this? How do you not know how to find the information,
Mm,
right? Like, so this is where this is like the hardest part for me is like, am I not explaining it in a way that's helpful for people? Like I second guess myself a lot in these situations. I'm like, I need a sense check from someone else. Like, is this just always going to be like the 10 to 20% that just doesn't get it, doesn't pay attention, expects like the service on a platter? Or is the majority of people like not understanding what I'm saying and I
mm,
need to figure out how to say it differently? Like that's a question I ask myself literally all the time. And I I need more feedback from people to be like, I still don't understand what you're talking about. And if that's the case, I'll be like, okay, like this is from a trusted person who like I know like
yeah.
engage with enablement. And if
Yeah.
they tell me like, hey, I need some more here, great. But it's usually like the same people who are like complaining. And I think I just kind of put them in a category of like that's just how they're gonna operate. And that just comes with the territory, right? And like with enablement, you're always gonna have a spectrum of people that you're supporting. You're going to have the people who are super silent, you never hear anything from them. They are probably doing what you want them to, but like
Yeah.
they're not going to like toot their own horn and they're not asking a bunch of questions. That's probably a majority. Then there's going to be people who do everything correctly, like sing the praises of the content that you've provided everyone, give you feedback, solicited or unsolicited, and it's really helpful. And there's always going to be a portion that just doesn't do anything
Mm.
and is very vocal about it, basically. And so I guess part of this battle that we have is how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with, I guess, the wave of different types of people that you support, and how do you like keep sane a bit? Because, like you said, it's not personal, it's business, but it kind of is personal.
And we talked about, I think in our earlier episodes, of enablement becoming the closet of broken things, but then there's another type of closet, and it's, the go-to encyclopedia for everything. I can't find it, so I'm going to go to Carly, and Carly's going to do it for me. Or I can't find it, so I'm going to go straight to Carly, and Carly's going to tell me how to do
Yes.
it, right? Or I don't know it, so I'm going to Slack Carly. How do you avoid that? You know, how do you change that mindset rather than going to the individual? Let me see what else is out there and see if I can solve my own issue, and then I'll reach out to Carly because I've exhausted every single road, and guess what? I still don't know. And I think in those situations, it's valid. But so often people take that easy route of, I'm just going to send a Slack message.
Yeah, speaking of Slack, do you have like a support channel or anything like
Oh,
that?
yes. Can I bury my head now?
Oh, no.
I do. I've created them because of, this willingness to help. Like we rolled something new out, let's create a Slack channel. It was meant to be, for 2, 3 weeks. I think this channel is around now for like a good few months. But if you have any questions, I was dedicated and committed to getting back to everyone in there. This chat is still ongoing. And I think if I could rewind, time, would I have kept the chat? Probably. Would I have kept it for as long as I did? Probably not.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've also built this, dependency on something. If I take it away now, it's like, but then again, I'm thinking if I take it away, it's like that extra step is going to be required before you Slack someone directly
Hmm.
for help. Have you done that in the past too?
So we have support channels as well. Not so we have like just a general like request RevOps channel, and there are things that the RevOps team actually has to do for a rep, like, or there's, if there was an error when they submitted something, like processed a churn or an upsell and it was wrong, we have to correct it. It's still amazing to me how many times people do something incorrectly before hitting like the submit button, like don't double check their work. Like to me, that just kind of drives me
Mm,
crazy. But um we would get a lot of questions where it's like, this is in Speckit, or there's something in Showpad for that.
mhm,
And so, but my team, and I'm guilty of this as well, we want like our nature is to help and provide support. And so we would just answer the question. And like we would just be like, oh, yeah, you can actually do this yourself, but I'll do it for you. And so I've been really challenging my team to be like, if this is something like changing the owner of a contact in Salesforce or like merging contact records or removing duplicate accounts, things like that, they can do that themselves. So I told my team, when you get these questions, link to the spec in the response and say, hey, this is something you can do yourself. Here's how to do it. And so there's the whole like adage of like teach the person to fish, they'll eat for
yeah.
the rest of their lives or whatever, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do. And so when someone's like, I can't find something in Showpad, I'll be like, have you searched for this? No, I didn't try search at all. Great. Why don't you try searching first?
Mm, mm,
Or like, hey, here, like it's in Showpad, try searching for it, or like showing people where to go and like pointing them in that direction, I think will hopefully start to build the behavior we want.
mm,
Uh, but and there are definitely like valid questions, like you said before. Um, and like I have all the time in the world for people who try. Like if someone comes to me and says, I have gone into Showpad and I've watched this video and I still need help. I'm like, great, let's hop on a call. I'll walk you through it. Like, that's no problem. If you need like points of clarification and you've done what you're supposed to do, I'll spend all day with you, right? But it's the people who are like, I don't know how to do this. Can you do it for me? Absolutely not. Like, that's not our job.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a little bit of like you kind of need to have those support channels in place, but you, I think, have to be really disciplined as a support function of when you actually do it for them and when you actually teach them to do it themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, there is a fine line, right, between genuinely needing help and I've looked around and I still don't know, which,
Yeah.
to your point is fine. Um, but it gets tricky, right? It gets tricky as you're bringing on new technology, and in a certain sense, in a lot of, you know, where you work, where I work, right, we're teaching our customers to change, like change their mindset, change the way they do things, engage in a different way. And then I think like that all sounds so great, but we also internally, and I think this is anywhere, have to get better at embracing change because it becomes such a cliche. Like we're, embracing change, but then no one really wants to do it because everyone is so set in their ways. So
Yes.
breaking that pattern, and I think it becomes a lot harder for, when you're dealing with maybe a sales organization that has been around for a while, like they've only known how to do things in a certain way. This is how they've been doing it for the last 5 years. So when you're suddenly changing that and breaking those patterns that they're so familiar with, I don't want to say you're becoming the bad cop, but you are a little bit of that disruptor, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be a disruptor and enabler at the same time, right?
Yeah. So
I,
I think that's why selling, like we have to sell quite a lot. Like a lot of our job is really like selling internally. So we have to really perfect our story about why these reps should care or get on board, right? And if you think about us and our reps as like a pipeline of deals, like we're not going to close all of them.
yeah,
Why we have an 80% success rate of converting people. That's actually really great.
yeah,
Uh, but it's definitely interesting how a lot of us, like the companies that we represent and how we go to market, is like we're revolutionizing our industries.
yeah.
But some of our processes are so like, I don't want to say basic,
Archaic.
but maybe just a little bit dated.
Yeah,
And so thankfully, I see this improving, especially as these tools that we use have been in place for a lot longer, like in the market. So when reps join Andela, they've used Gong or Chorus before. Like it's not a big deal.
yeah,
Or they've used an enablement platform. So I'm seeing much easier adoption as more reps
mhm,
coming in because they've had experience with these
yeah,
tools before.
yeah. And that past experience definitely makes it easier. Do you think there is a magic formula to tackling this? Like we spoke about, channels, having the content ready, having the information easily accessible, repetition. Is there anything else that we're missing?
Um,
And patience.
patience. God, I'm so bad at patience. Leadership support
Oh, yes, that's a big one.
is the big one. I was talking to one of my peers earlier this week, and he was like, "Oh, I tell my team all the time, like, no, don't go to RevOps, go to the spec it first." I'm like, I'm so happy to hear that you are reinforcing like what we say, like go to the tools, like go to use the latest version of the deck. It's in Showpad, right? Um, and that gives me peace of mind that I am not, and my team, we're not alone going crazy on an island, the only ones trying to like, help with adoption. And so I always try and speak to the leaders about like the importance of the tool and like, hey, like we are here to provide all the support in the world. But if you guys don't use that support, like what can we do? Right.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is also like a controversial topic. I've seen it like talked about on LinkedIn is like if reps aren't taking your content, like your content's not very good. And like I like disagree with that. Um, I think there's a balance there, and like leaders need to come in and provide that support as well.
Mhm.
And say like, hey, like nope, the process has changed, like this is
Yeah.
what you should be doing instead, or like, hey, that pitch deck looks really old, do you have a version downloaded on your desktop? Like that's not what's in Showpad. So I actually rely on the leaders quite a bit, but I don't realize how much effort they are putting in as well. And I like kind of got a little bit of a sneak peek of that this week, and it made me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe just a missing formula, is adding the leadership buy-in and support, for everything, and giving them a heads up before the changes come so
Yeah.
that they can help provide support to their team as
Yeah.
well.
And if you think about rolling out, any tool, ultimately those sales managers, those heads of sales, those VPs of sales, having their buy-in from the beginning, having them, understand that why, like why should their reps care, I think is the first part of success. Because if you're rolling something out and no one in the sales leadership world is on board, how on earth can we expect adoption from the reps?
Yeah,
It's never going to happen. You
never
can
gonna
do
happen.
anything from an enablement standpoint, but it's just never going to happen. And then to your point, you're on an island, you're fighting your own battle, but you're kind of doing it alone.
Hmm. Yep. And that's not fun for anyone.
No.
It's like really heartbreaking. In fact, what someone on my team told me that it was like it was heartbreaking for her that people like didn't take the training that she built, and I was just like, "Ugh, I've been there before. I completely understand where like how you feel." um but it's really hard to separate like that feeling of like personal like
Mhm.
excitement that you've built something that's really helpful for people, and then if they don't leverage it, like again it goes back to like it's not personal, but it kind of feels like it.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for people who take a lot of pride in their work. I think you and I are included. Like the person I was talking to on my team is the same way. It's really hard to be like, well, I've done what I can for you. And if you don't, that's on you. It's really hard to have that kind of mindset. But I think in order to stay a little bit sane, I kind of have to have that
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
So yeah. But so are you gonna keep the channel?
Maybe for another few weeks.
I would just
Ask
say
me in
if
our
you want
next
to
episode.
start
I'll
it,
update you guys on the channel if it's still going. Uh,
yeah, just rip the band-aid off. If you don't want it anymore, just be like, the help sites of these tools are really helpful. Everything you need is there.
right? And no one uses them. That's another thing. But anyway,
I think end users don't use the help sites very
no.
often. I use the help site for literally every tool we have anytime I have a question,
Yeah.
um, before I go to the support
Yeah.
team. But that's
We have
again,
a few we have a
we
few tools where definitely the individuals on the other side of support at whatever.com know me very well, right?
we're like, has Malvina looked at the support
I
site?
couldn't find it on the help center, and that is why I'm coming to you. You see, I'm
Yeah.
the perfect customer on the other side.
Yes.
But they still don't want to spend the whole day with me. But anyway, all right, I think that's a wrap. I think bottom line is Enablement loves you. We all love you. We're here to help and support you. Let's just hope that, I don't know, by the time we get to the end of 2023, it'll be like 5 times versus the
Yeah.
7 where we are today. That would be a huge improvement.
Huge improvement. But yes, if you are a sales rep watching this, be patient with your enablement folks. They get the same question asked to them all the time. So maybe try looking in your tools that they've provided you before going to them with the question. They'll make your day. That'll make their day. Yeah, that would
For
make me happy. But thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Enablement Brew, and we will see you next time.